Okay guys, this is the simple shelter that you can make as you're out trekking around. In the 18th century, hunters' camps were described as being like a three-sided cabin that a couple men could make in a day. This is more of just a quick type of shelter you can make, more for one night or a couple nights. The hunters' cabins were described as sloping from the front to the back with the fire out front, and they were often covered with blankets or slabs of wood or bark, anything, branches, anything they can cover them with to try to keep out the snow and rain. This is just a quick shelter that I made using my blankets. I have one to cover up with and one for the roof of the shelter. And I used ferns to make a bedding and to help seal out drafts from the back. You want to make sure you position it so the wind is out of your face, especially if you're going to have a fire out front. You don't want the smoke blowing right into you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. It's just a quick shelter. If you have a large enough blanket, you can make this. You don't have to use the two poles. You can make it with one pole and make it more like just a regular A-frame sort of shape. But this is kind of a nice, simple style. If you have any extra, you can sort of flap that down. I don't have much extra up on top doing it this way, but it's enough to get underneath. If raining, I might want a little more, or just throw over my blanket over my head. In Nicholas Cresswell's journal, he talks about having to sleep in the open, and he doesn't describe making shelters. He also describes sleeping on logs in downpours to try to stay off the wet ground. So definitely a rough time in the era, but yeah, so this is just a quick little shelter, and thought I'd share it with you guys. In the 18th century, it wasn't all about just hunting. After an animal was killed, the work really began. If you were going to save the meat, and not just the hide, you would have to jerk the meat to dry it out. And Nicholas Cresswell talks about having to jerk meat because that was their only provision. And they made a little rack about 3 feet off the ground, and a slow fire was put under it. The meat was cut into strips, and they laid it across the rack, and that was allowed to dry over the fire all day. You don't want to cook it. If you just cook it, it will go bad very fast. You want to dry it out. In his journal, he mentions stopping the one day to jerk the meat, and they continued on down the river the very next day. So apparently this was something they were able to get done within one day. If you start later in the day, you might have to do it all night. But what they did was they cut strips of real thin strips of meat like jerky and laid it across these racks, and you can build a little like a A-frame, cover it with branches to try to keep some smoke in if you're trying to more smoke it, or you could lay it over here, and when I put my hand on here, you can feel a little bit of heat, and that's all you really need. You want to dry it out because the moisture is what holds the bacteria and makes it rot. So in a hunter's camp, that's something that you would have been doing. It wasn't just going out and shooting, skinning the animal. This was your provision. You'd be sitting around the fire, tending to your clothes, or mending your clothes, fixing your moccasins, basically doing everything you need to continue on with your hunt and to live. So I have a little bit of meat cooking. After an animal was killed, they would eat as much meat as they could, and then jerk the rest. So they had some dried meat that they could store easily. You have to keep it out of the rain to dry, like bring it in overnight if you're going to try to do it overnight, or you have to keep your fire going all night. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little video, and see you in the next video.